Welcome to the Spirit-Centered Business Podcast, where we blend the spiritual with the practical for supernatural results. Now, here is your host, Bralynn Newby.
Welcome to Spirit-Centered Business. I'm here with Johnny Lujan. I'm excited to have a conversation with him today. First of all, I just want to get the announcements out of the way. The Academy is now open. We are having so much fun over there with all of the experts that are on the show are also teaching in the Academy. And we meet twice a month live for Q&A, a little bit of coaching, help you implement what you're learning in the Academy. And also the cruise. I always need a drum roll for that. The cruise is open. We are so excited about it. Yes, we're all in quarantine right now. We're shut down, we're locked down, and we are going to be ready to travel by September, let me tell you. So that is with Lindy Strong and myself. It's called the Inside Out Business Retreat. We're going to be working on a lot of our inside stuff and our business so that we're actually going to be implementing, breaking off or limiting stuff that's going on and implementing things for our business. So that is September 12th through the 20th. And if you want to learn more, you can go to spiritcenteredbusiness.com and click on the cruise button over there. I don't think there are any more announcements at the moment. So let's get to Johnny. Johnny Lujan, you were I don't know if you were my very first, but you were one of the very first clients when I was testing the waters and dipping my toe into the industry. Gosh, way back in the day. That was so long ago.
Time ago.
I know, right? And then I had the honor and pleasure and fun of working with you again a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
To launch some of your coaching and build a little bit of program. I think you were working on a book at the time and that kind of stuff. I know you've kind of morphed and done other things, but you are still coaching. Let's talk about kind of your journey of how you came out of just being a pastor and actually stepping into business and monetizing all of that brilliance that everybody who sees you speak knows you have.
Yeah, you know what? It's an amazing journey, right? Just to leave your heart open to the Lord and let Him guide you. And through all of our trials and tribulations, there's a many folders that we have. And so being a pastor, you know, and I never take my hat off. It's really interesting because when I do a coaching session, I sit there. I just happen to maybe put my hat off to the side so I can really listen to them openly. A lot of the individuals that I coach in my programs and my one-on-ones have had a very, I guess you'd say, colorful background, and I really relate to that background. And so for me,
both a colorful background and an addictive.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so we'll talk about that other side too. So
yeah,
okay.
So that it really opens me up, you know. And most of the individuals that I speak with or coach with, you know, I have to be very clear to let them be open. They have to trust me to be honest. So I like to share a little bit about my life, and they see the transformation happening. So standing behind the pulpit and reading the good book is awesome, but being practical and sitting with somebody when they just got out of prison, when they just went through the divorce, when they can't put the bottle down, it's a whole different perspective having been there and being able to relate with them and say, I've been there. I know how you feel. Now let's work on how you feel and what's going on the inside. So I was able to do that, and it's an amazing process. It's really cool.
That's awesome. So I know that we just off camera, we were just talking about some business ethic issues because you have worked for other companies as well, and you've done sales and you've done multiple things, but the spiritual side or the kingdom principles, being spirit-centered, is always there. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, you know, if you're a C Corp executive, if you are a sales manager, if you have anything to do with travel and sales and big companies, I worked for a company that was huge, just the sales force alone was about 4,300 salespeople. So when we would have a sales meeting, right? We would always go to the lavish hotel, open bar, all kinds of craziness going on. And I would really have to stay focused with who I am as an individual, who I am in Christ. And I would have to go back to my room at 10, right? I don't stay out doing those kinds of things. And even when in sales, I'd travel, right? I'd have corporate accounts. I could stay at any hotel I wanted. I had a company car. I had a company credit card. So it's open. And a lot of the individuals that were on my team looked to me as their mentor, even though I wasn't their leader. I was just their peer. Mm-hmm. But there's something to be said about having a spirit-centered life. You know, the good book says that we are the light in the darkness. And just by living a principled life through all that mess, again, coming from that world in the past and working through it, they looked at me as their mentor, and they could not understand how I could get through the day, how could I get through the sales meetings without falling trapped to the world. And so I was able to bring my spirit principles in, and when they looked at me, they go, you know, I don't say this to boast, but they would say, man, when I grow up, I want to be just like you. and I was their mentor. I wouldn't necessarily say I was their spiritual mentor that they didn't know about, but I was really their spiritual mentor, showing them that there is a road to peace and happiness, and that's how I did it, and I still do it today.
So just kind of being in the marketplace, being your spirit-centered self. It's not like you're hitting over anybody over the head with Christianese or the Bible or anything like that. It's just you having those principles. They naturally gravitated towards you and saw you as something different that they wanted.
It's my favorite place to be is in the jungle, right? My favorite place to be is in the craziness of a corporation that is just a mess. And then I've been hired by companies. That's not what I do today, but for many years I was hired by companies to change the culture of their company. And they would hire me, and they would give me an empty office, a little 10 by 10 office, and all that was in there would be a desk and a computer. And they go, we don't know what you do with people, but we are going to hire you to change the culture of my company. And I had no skills. I had no coaching skills. All they knew is knowing me personally and watching my life, and they wanted that in their company. And it wasn't Johnny they wanted what was inside me. So they would pay me good money, and I would meet with each individual, and I would talk to them and find out who they were, where they came from, what their life was about, really got connected with these individuals. And before you know it, when I started caring for them and loving them and respecting them, all of a sudden the culture started changing. And we never went, you can't change culture or bring that light in from the bottom. You can't tell the janitor what you want him to do without the CEO starting first. So I would always have that corporate meeting. I would always have that corporate meeting and say, this is, if you want to change the culture, this is where it starts. So let's have a one-on-one, and I'll let you know where I'm coming from. And then if that's what you want to do, let's get in the jungle and start hacking it out. So it happened to me many, many times. And then from that, companies folded in 2010. And then I started my sales journey, and I just kept bringing that same principle everywhere I went. And basically bring the light of Christ in everywhere you go. So that's my favorite place to be,
So when you were talking to those CEOs who knew that the shift had to start top down, are they Christian or anything? Are they?
No, I mean, it's very interesting. It's very interesting because they, again, right, it's the light. Everybody wants that, right? Galatians 5:22, everybody wants the fruit of the Spirit, right? Everybody wants peace and love and joy and all those things. They just don't know how to grab them because they're living a promiscuous life. They're running their companies promiscuously. So you go and you stand on principle and say, this is what we want in our company. We want love, peace, joy, right? All the fruit of the Spirit. That's what they want in their company, and be an awesome company. So that's where we start. And a lot of them don't understand. I mean, a classic story was one of the gentlemen that hired me knew me through speaking, for watching me speak publicly, hired me to his company, changed the culture of his company. It took about 7-8 months, and he wanted me to do the hiring. So I started hiring good character people. Some were believers, some weren't, but we started bringing this culture of light and goodness and honesty and faithfulness and integrity into the company. And within 6 to 8 months, he went to church. He was an analytical. And within 2 months of going to church, he raised his hand and came forward and gave his heart to Christ. Right? This is an owner of a huge construction company. And from that point on, his whole life changed, obviously, and his whole family changed, and everything changed. But that's what happens, is that it's so, if you present it the right way, if you're just who God created you to be, it is so attractive that people want that. And eventually, right, the heart of Jesus will crack their heart, and nothing I did except be who Christ named me to be, and the whole culture changed. It's just an amazing process. When you let it be, and you let the Spirit flow through you, it's a transformation. And it's awesome to see. It's awesome to watch.
That's awesome. So from that place where you were having the influence just because you were letting the Spirit flow, that's when, maybe I don't have the story right, but that's when the executives who did have addiction problems would come to you and say, hey, can you help me with?
Yeah. And it was amazing, because sometimes I would have a CEO or general manager of a huge corporation come to me and say, I've had many conversations with Joe, and Joe's my sales manager, and we spent a lot of money on Joe, and we trained Joe a lot, but we know that Joe is drinking or doing whatever he's doing, and it's affecting his job, and eventually we're going to have to let him go. We would rather work with Joe because he's an asset to the company. Could you speak with Joe? And so kind of and that was a question. And the interesting thing was, I worked for a different company, and they were my customer when this first happened. And this customer asked me, because they saw me communicate with people, asked me to work with their lead sales manager to save that position. And so I took that as a quest and as a favor. And I said, you know what, I'll do it. And so I worked with this gentleman for 6 months, and we got down and dirty because that's where I came from, and I get really honest, and I say, this is who I am, this is where I came from. So no matter what you tell me, I've either done it, thought it, or was involved with it at one time. So let's just get honest. And it takes about a good 6 months to, chisel the shell from around their heart so they actually can be honest. And then we start getting into the principles of, and again, right, for me, a lot of people, maybe not on this show, but a lot of people know my story, right? And it took me a while, right? And of transformation. So I've been there, I've done that. It's hard. It's the hardest thing you ever have to do, but it's the most freeing thing that will ever happen to your life, is to get on the path of recovery.
Yeah.
Changes
right.
everything.
So that was a little bit about how you've blended the spiritual into the business. So would you like to share a little bit about your story? I mean, what you came from? I mean, you don't have to.
Yeah, you know what? I'm probably the most vulnerable guy anybody will ever meet, because I'm honest with myself. And so I'll just do it quick. My story was, at the age of 12, we moved from East LA up to Northern California. I was out of my element. I was 12 years old. I was doing a lot of bad things in LA. I came up here, and at 12, I started drinking. Started breaking into my neighbor's house. And, some people can, I guess when you're a kid, you have a shot of whiskey and you spit it out and get sick. And, I had a half a beer and a shot of whiskey, and I'm like, this is really good. And from that point, as everybody realizes, if you are in addiction or you know someone, it's a progressive disease. So I continue this journey since 12 years old, through high school, through all the way into the military. And every year it got worse and worse and worse. Fighting and drugging and got into the military, and it went haywire. I went all over the world doing and using all kinds of weird things. Got out of the military. Honesty hurts, but you know what? I was with a young lady, and we had a baby, and that baby was very, very young when my life really took the jump into violence, into crime, I guess you'd say. I did a lot of bad things, and it got to the point where I stood before the judge in Southern California, and they said, "You're unfit to be a man, you're unfit to be a father, and you're unfit to be a husband. Look at your little girl," and she was 2.5. "Look at your little girl. You're never going to see her again. I'm taking all your emotional custody, physical custody, mental custody away from you. Pretend like you never had a kid. Get out of my court. I see you one more time, and you're going away." And here's the crazy part of the story. I tell that part of the story because you would think that would devastate a man. But when you're addicted, I don't care if you make $500,000 a year or you make $5 a year. When you're addicted, that has no bearing on you. Because when I looked at that little girl, she was basically a possession because I didn't have much. And so I got so angry at the judge. Everything in me, my goal was to follow him home and burn his house down. That's what addicts do. That's how addicts think. So a few months later, right, that didn't make me stop. It made me get pissed off and do more. And then at the very end, I went before the judge again, and he said, "I know there's something in you that's good. I don't know what it is, and I'm going to give you a choice. You can go behind door number 1, or you can choose recovery behind door number 2. And I didn't want to go to prison, so I chose door number 2 just to get the law off my back, get CPS off, and all those things.
Yeah.
What I found? I found something that I was longing for my whole life, and I never felt it until I walked into those rooms. And what I felt was acceptance and love. I didn't have to be anybody besides Johnny. I could laugh again. I could smile again. And I started learning that all of that stuff was just life that I needed to learn. The drugs, the alcohol, the women, all those things was just a cover-up to this scared little individual, this 29-year-old little boy who could not figure it out. And when the first guy came up to me, it took about 30 days before I really could open up, and he put his arms around me and really hugged me. It was so uncomfortable for me. I told him, "You have a minute to get your hands off me or I'm going to, punch you in the throat." But 30 days after that, when he hugged me, I didn't let him go for seemed like 3 hours. I hugged him, and I never had that. And I get chills just talking about it, because I never felt anything like that before in my life, that another man hugged me and just loved me because I was just me. And I get emotional about talking about it because
I know.
Here's the deal. It's what every person wants. So when I go talk to an executive, right, and just look at him in the eyes and I say, "You know what? No matter what you did or what you're doing, I really do love you. Just as Christ loves you, I love you. And if you want to work, we can make your life a whole lot better." I give him a big hug. And a lot of times, most guys, get really stiff like a board, but I know on the inside, they don't want me to let them go because they're longing for someone to love them as Christ would love them. And so that's kind of what I do. And I bring that into my coaching. I bring that into my speaking. I'm very open. Everybody knows when they talk to Johnny, they know that I'm just a guy who loves the Lord, and the Lord uses me in many crazy ways. So that's kind of my story. And here's the best part of my story. Because I did that, and because I trudged the road, right, to happy destiny, that little girl that the courts took from me is now my best friend. I married her in her wedding. I was able to baptize her and my son-in-law. I was able to walk my son-in-law to the cross and have him accept Christ. And now I'm a grandfather of 3 grandsons from that little girl that the world said I would never be a father to. But Jesus had a different plan for me. So it is. I get thrilled. I mean, I'm an old guy, but I still get thrilled because the best is yet to come.
Restoration.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, speaking of an old guy, you've done some marathons.
Yeah.
So that took a different level of commitment and discipline. Tell us about that.
Yeah. You know what? Right? It's always spirit filled, right? My brother passed away from what I was recovering from, living on the streets, homeless, drug addicted, alcoholism. I got him off the street, and he passed away from street life. And I remember walking in, and you never know why things happen or the Lord brings you through things. But I walked into his apartment one day, and he's laying in his bed dead. Right? This is my big brother, and for a moment, I was in denial, and I was doing all kinds of crazy things. And you ask that question, why God? Why would you have me, his little brother, find him dead in his bed?
Yeah.
Right. So, but later on, right, I knew why, right? Because I was supposed to. Now I could help more people. But when I saw him there, I knew that he was very unhealthy, and I made a goal that I'm not going to let my brother die in vain. I'm going to get super healthy, and I'm going to run a marathon, and I'm going to put his name on my. I'm getting emotional again. I'm going to put his name on my running pack, and he's going to go everywhere I go. Right. So I've done 3 marathons, and I've done 2 Spartan races. I got 2 more to do in 2020. So he passed away, but he's still my inspiration. He's still living strong in my heart, and I'm able to share with people now when they lose a loved one. Right, I can sit with them again in another whole situation and say, "Man, I've been there." Right? It's you don't have to drink, you don't have to use, you don't have to jump out the window, you don't have to do whatever you're doing to cover that pain. We can get through that pain, right? So yeah, marathon's awesome. Spartans, I do full body weight exercises now, preparing for June, if depending on the situation,
right?
But I want to stay healthy, and again, for me, it's I want to represent the Lord the best I can. So when he says, you know what, your body's a temple, I want to take that very serious. I don't want to stand up in front of my congregation, slouching over and being a glutton and all those kinds of things. So I want to represent myself the best I can for Christ. And that means taking care of my body, taking care of my mind, taking care of my health, taking care of my all the vitals, so I can be vibrant, so you can use me more.
That's a really good word right there.
Yeah.
Seriously, a lot of people who would say, "Oh, I'm a Christian, the body is the temple," sure don't act like it.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's hard. It's a commitment, right? It's a commitment.
Yeah.
But being vibrant, being a vibrant Christian, by being healthy and glowing and the light just coming shining out of you and being happy with positive attitude. Man, there's enough going on in the world today to really rain on someone's rainbow, and it's not going to be right. I had a conversation. I was on a Zoom call this morning. I had a conversation with a guy, and he goes, "Man, he goes, all this stuff is going on." He goes, "How are you getting through it?" I go, "You know what? I want to be the best I can be, to the very end. I don't want to go up to Jesus and him say, you know what? I gave you all these gifts, and you hid in your closet, right? Or you sat on the couch, or you kept eating cheeseburgers, and I was preparing you for a marathon, right? Because there's so much more for you to do. I got so much more. There's a whole world hurting. There's people that need to know me. So take care of yourself and go share the gospel." And we all can do it. You don't have to be a pastor or a preacher, right? It's just how we live our life.
Yep, exactly.
I always say in my congregation, the greatest compliment you could ever have is when somebody meets you and they say, "There's something different about her."
Yeah.
There's something different about that guy. And they got to know, right? They ask the question, and then you get the right to share why there's something different about you.
Yep, that's really good.
Yeah.
So, gosh, there's so much to talk about. It's almost hard to choose something, but how about when you started your coaching company, the Tag Team Motivation, or was that the first one? I don't remember.
That is so. And you know what? That is my tag, because that came. I can't tell. That was before. That was right when I started speaking.
Yeah.
And I didn't know what to do, what to call, but I had this vision in my brain right after I went to my first a conference. I heard a speaker, and I started learning about learning styles and how people learn and how people get motivated. And it stuck in my head, that phrase. And I remember, this is going to be really old, this is going to be really funny, but I remember when I was a kid in the 70s, me and my brothers, we used to watch WWE when it was first starting out. Everybody had masks on, right? And they called it the Tag Team Challenge. And it was, right? And so some guy would be in the ring, and he'd be getting his rear end just kicked around the thing. And all he had to do was get to the edge of the ring and tag his partner, and his partner would be able to come in and save him. And that was the tag team match. And so as I was thinking about, tag team motivation, is if we can somehow, and it's never been all about me. It's like, how do we bring in individuals into a conference who is very analytical? Because that's far from Johnny.
Right.
But there's a whole lot of people that need to learn analytics, right? They learn that way. They learn graphs and figures and all those things. And there's a lot of people who learn by animation, right? By me, excitement, and show me colors and show me the possibilities. And there's other people that are very amiable that just want it really slow and thought out. So that was the whole concept of that, is how we can touch many, many people at one time with different individuals, bringing different, the same message, but in different ways. And that's kind of how it all started.
Yeah, that's cool. And so you did that for a couple years, and so you were able to speak around a little bit. That was fun. And let's see. So then you had your coaching, not the current coaching, but wasn't there a coaching bit before I helped you build the new one?
Well, that was, and again, that was when I was really starting out in the ministry. Because I remember when we first met, I had this, I was talking about, I think God's telling me to start a church.
Yes. Oh, yes, that's right.
And we were sitting I was thinking, I go, man, he took me out to the ocean, and you were one of the first people I shared with, was about this crazy feeling I have that I'm supposed to do this, reach these crazy people, and have this crazy dream, and that's kind of how all that started. And then I was jumping really, really fast into the ministry as I don't know what you call it. I guess I didn't call myself a pastor at the time. I just called myself a preacher, preaching to a bunch of bikers. And that's when all that started.
Thunder Road, right?
Yeah, Thunder Road Church, yeah.
Yeah, that is so cool. And I just thought that was an amazing idea. And of course, I wanted to help you monetize it. Because everything that you talk about is just so good, and I love the way you tell stories and stuff like that. And I think that you are able to impact people in their lives, not only because of your story, but how you tell a story and how you weave stuff in there. So, do you have one you could tell us? Tell us a good story, Johnny.
Oh man, you know what? And all my stories is really interesting. All my stories usually have a principle, right? So I use it in my coaching. I use it in my speaking, about being motivated, being all kinds of stuff. Gosh, many stories. What can I tell you? You know what? One of my favorite stories is you heard this story before. Is when I jumped off the Rainbow Bridge.
Yeah, that's a good one. Tell it.
It's a great story, right? I mean, I was 15 years old, and just running amok and doing my thing. And I was down there at Negro Bar off the American River, and jumping off the rocks and doing some things. And somebody looked up and said, "Man, you should go jump off that bridge." And not too many people have jumped off that bridge. And I said, "Well, who's jumped off that bridge?" And I remember a young man said, "Well, I jumped off the bridge. I'll go up there and jump with you if you want to jump." And I said, "Well, I'm not jumping for free." So there were some individuals there who had monetizing, right? They had something that I really wanted. And so I made a bargain. I said, "You give me what's in that cooler and I'll go jump off that bridge." And so they agreed. They were a lot older than me. So me and this young man went up on top of Rainbow Bridge. And if you've been on it walking, which you're not supposed to do, it shakes a lot as cars go by. And there's really just a little tiny walkway. And I remember walking down the walkway, and it's shimmering, and the trucks are coming by, and we're holding onto the rail. And we get to I believe it's the third light pole on Rainbow Bridge, the old Rainbow Bridge. And we stood up.
Folsom, California.
Folsom, California.
Yeah. Okay.
And we looked over the edge, and it was a lot farther down from up than it is when you're down. And that young man looked at it and he goes, I lied. I've never jumped off this bridge before. I'm not doing it. And so he turned and walked away, and everybody's yelling at him and calling him names and all kinds of stuff. And he walked down, and I stood there petrified because I made a promise and I really wanted what was in that cooler. And so I stood on that bridge, and I climbed up on top of the railing, and I'm holding on to the light pole, and the trucks are coming by, and I'm thinking, I got to jump, right? I said, what if you die? What, all these kinds of things. And I stood there for a long time, and then finally said, "You know what? I got to jump. I'm going to do it." So what I did is I turned around and looked behind me at the river behind me, and because it was so far away, it didn't look that deep far away. So I held off, and I took a step off the bridge, and I jumped off that bridge, and it took a long time. And when I hit the water, I mean, it really hurt bad. And I hit the water, and you had to time it, you had the time to jump when they open up the dam so the river would be up. Because when you're on top of the bridge and you look down, you can see the boulders underneath the water. So you really don't know, right, where you're going to jump. So the water rises when they open the dam, and then you can jump. And then I floated with the current all the way down there, and I got up. But I think about that time that a lot these days when I'm going to, when I really want to do something. And I'm very, very, I'm afraid, like, man, what are they going to say? Or what if I do fail? I don't know. And so, one of my sayings is, man, sometimes you just got to jump. You got to take the chance. You can't sit, idle your whole life. You got to go do it. And the thrill of trying in business is exhilarating, right? The thrill of another 30 days clean and sober, exhilarating. Right, so when we talk about these things, it's like, man, there's many things you can do, right? Jumping off a bridge, I don't know. I mean, it was scary. It's something I get to talk about, but the preparation of life is what gets me in those stories.
Yeah, but let's be honest. You would not want your son or daughter to be jumping off the Rainbow Bridge.
You know what?
It's not a good idea.
No, not really. Not the Rainbow Bridge. But you know what I want my kids to do? I want my kids to take the chance.
Yeah.
And you know what? Don't tell me, but I want to instill in them that, you know what? Yeah, you're going to fail. You know what? You're going to, you got to jump. You got to go. There's so many people in business, so many people that are just so petrified to fail, so petrified to take a chance, so petrified to do anything that they stagnate their lives, right? 5 years from now, you're going to be sitting in the same chair doing the same thing with the same people, wondering, man, what if I was to jump off the Rainbow Bridge?
Yeah.
And it worked, right? And you hit the water and it hurt a little bit, and you skinned your knee a little bit, and you floated down the current, you came up. And the amazing thing is when you come up, there's 50 people on the sidelines cheering you on like, holy cow, the guy actually did it. The guy actually took a chance and went into business for himself. Wow, the guy actually went into recovery, and now he's got a year sober. I mean, it's like the old, what was it, the Wild World of Sports, right? The thrill of victory and the agony of defeat.
Oh my gosh, I remember those.
Remember that? The feel of
Yes.
victory is so sweet. Right? And this morning on my conference call, right, it was like victory and success is different for everybody, right? My vision of success is when I'm going to get emotional again. My victory of success is when I read my daughter's paper that she turned in at school, and they asked her who her hero was, and it was my story. Right? So I'm gonna cry. Right? But that's success, right? Yeah, I've been laid off. Yeah, I've been out of work. I've had to eat top ramen many times, right? A splurging for a pound of hamburger, right? For, not going without milk.
Yeah.
Right? But knowing God's got a big plan for me. And when your daughter writes that note and she brings it home and she shows you the paper that she wrote, and she got to share in school, and you were her hero, why wouldn't you jump off the bridge? I'd jump off the bridge again, right? So I want to instill in my kids that, man, I want you to go for it. I want you to do everything possibly that God has put you on this earth for. I want you to go and travel the world if you want to. I want you to, if you want to, if the word's telling you that you're supposed to, go to college for 4 years and do all those things, but you want to be a tattoo artist, you know what? Go be a tattoo artist. Right? If you want to go bake cakes for a living, you know what? Everyone we're all put on the planet for a specific purpose. We're so afraid of what people are going to say when we go chase our dream that we get stagnated. Sometimes you want to grab people by the collar and just start shaking them and say, man, jump off the bridge, right? For me, I'd go up there and say, I'll jump with you, right? So I've done so many things in my life, right? I'll walk the road of recovery with you, right? Again, Johnny being vulnerable, right? I've been through divorce, right? I've lost my child to the court system. I've been chased down by CPS. I've had the FBI follow me to work every day, right? I've gotten laid off. I've never been fired, which is great, but I have been laid off. I've been all those things, right? I've lost cars. I've lost all. It's part of the journey. It's where God is taking you. Because when you get to the other side, you're going to help so many people. And that's what life's all about. It's about helping others. That's, probably my biggest key in recovery is that humility and serving others. Because for us, I speak for myself, right? Selfishness and self-centeredness seems to be the root of all my problems and all my issues. I get out of myself and I go purposely helping other people. All of my issues seem nothing, and now I'm called to a purpose of service, be it coaching, be it recovery, being a pastor of a crazy biker church, of being a CEO for a nonprofit, whatever that is. It brings you to the other side. And you unless you take the chances, you're never going to get there. Gotta live.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, that's really good. And I know one of your taglines is to be courageous.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, we all have fear. I still have fears. The quote is that you cannot have courage without fear. When you're on a battlefield and they say charge, and the other guy on the other side's got live ammunition and bayonets. You read stories about these courageous soldiers. And you're like, man, what would possess a man to charge a battlefield to save his friend or save his buddy? And yet make it all the way through the other side with bullets flying everywhere, grab his friend, come back, save his friend's life, and continue to fight so all the other guys can get. You don't think he's afraid? Of course he's afraid, right? But he has the courage enough to say, I'm going to make a difference. That's courage, right? You can't have it without fear, right? You know what? Getting married, starting your own business, having your first child, writing here's a big one, putting your signature on a $400,000 house payment, right? Right? Or $300,000 when you buy your first house.
Sure.
I remember when I bought my first house, gosh, I think it was like $140,000. And I was shaking, thinking,
Yeah.
how am I going to pay for this? Right? But yet, that's how we started our family, right? And we just kept progressing. My daughter, and the one that the judges took for me, she lives in Ohio, and she bought a house many years ago for $92,000. And she called me, which is another testimony that I'm the one she calls for advice, okay, after all the past. And she says, Dad, I don't want to sign, it's $92,000. And I'm in California. I said, well, I'll sign it, and then you can rent it from me.
Right. 90,000.
But that's fearful. And the courage is to say, we're going to do this. Right? We're going to do this together, right? When you again, having children, getting married, starting a business, building your company. It's all, there's fear involved. And whoever tells you that fear is false, they never, maybe they never stood in front of real fear, because there's real fear out there. But the courage, right? The courage that Christ talks about is that, mentions it all through the scriptures, right? Be courageous. I'm with you. Nothing's going to hurt you.
Yeah.
Be courageous. I'm with you, right? So when you go to start that business, you go, I don't know, man, be courageous. You might be a little fearful, but you're going to get through it, right? Going to your first recovery meeting. Shoot, you're talking about being fearful, right? Going to talking to somebody because you have an issue, right? Mm-hmm. You're a $500,000 executive, and people don't know that you're staying at your office till 10:30 at night, sipping on a brandy every night because you don't want to go home, or that you're just so stressed out about to lose, $1 million from your company. You don't think that's fearful? Of course it's fear, right?
Yeah.
We cover our courage with a bottle, and Christ says He's the courage, right? So fear hits us all differently.
Mm-hmm.
Until we face it and say, you know what? I'm going to go to my first meeting, or I'm going to have my first coaching session, or I'm going to have my first whatever. I need to talk to somebody. Man, that is fearful. To say to somebody and to raise your hand and say, I'm an addict, right? My life's uncontrollable. I'm about to lose my company, my family, my house, and I don't know what to do. And you could be 50 years old, and now you feel like you're 12 again because you don't have the answer. That's real fear. Mm-hmm. Real fear. But then when you do it, there's other, thousands have walked the road. Thousands have started their companies. Thousands have overcome addiction. Thousands have had successful marriages. Thousands have had incredible families and children. So you're not the only one, right? So that's what we got to get through to people. Right.
And I think that when you're putting your message like you are right now, when you're putting that message out there, I think that those guys who will relate to that, who are in the C-suite and having addiction problems and they don't have the answer, they're really struggling, and they're not going to walk into an AA.
Yeah.
They're going to call someone like you, and it's going to be, because they need to be able to trust you. They need to be able to trust that you've got their back and that you're not going to tell anybody. And that's
the key, right? The anonymity part for a C-suite executive, or a sales manager of 4,300 salesmen, or a territory account manager who is traveling around, right? If you were to go and all of a sudden, right, there's supposed to be anonymity, but today's age, the internet's everywhere, and someone writes and said, hey, I just saw our CEO down at, 5th Street Alano Club at a AA meeting. You don't think that's going to go? So a lot of the guys, again, fear. They're in fear that, their anonymity is so important, right? Because a CEO or a head sales manager who that happens to, right? The wave of events that can happen for a company, right? Because the word gets out and the talk gets out, and pretty soon people, it might be a publicly traded company, and you got investors going, man, I don't want any part of this, right? Man, I hear, Bill's got this, man. Man, is he embezzling money? He's drinking every day. Is he, is he falsifying his sales numbers, his sales calls? It happens all the time. And I'll, me, I'm a pretty blunt guy, right? It even happens to Christian business owners, right? Addiction, I'll tell you from the heart, addiction is cunning, baffling, and powerful, right? And Christian or not, if you think you got it all together, it's coming, right? It's creeping, right? It says Satan comes as a lion, we're waiting to devour you. And he is going to devour you, right? Someone's going to see you, someone's going to catch you, someone's going to walk in the office one night or whatever it might be, and then your world's going to crumble before your eyes.
But it starts out as he comes as the angel of light. It all looks good. It all looks great. He puts these little thoughts in your head. Oh, it'll be fine. Just one little, just fudge this number over here. Just, oh my gosh. Yeah. So, and I can tell that our watchers, our listeners, that, Johnny is so approachable and so personable that an executive wouldn't feel put off by meeting with you. There's no intimidation, there's no ego, there's nothing. Johnny's just such a warm heart, and you can just tell immediately he cares because he's been there, he's walked that road. Wow. And I'm sure that you get that a lot. Yeah. You get, how come I feel like I can talk to you, Yeah, well,
I'm just, again, right. It's I remember hearing somebody saying, when God told me I'm supposed to start a church, and, I had many people, hey, what seminary did you go to? And how many plaques do you have on the wall? And all those things. Right. And I remember a gentleman, and I was really doubting myself. I was doubting my call. I was doubting my call, from a direct call to start this church for these specific people. And I remember a guy looking at me and he says, you know what? Because this is what I tell people. He says, I've never been to a seminary, but I have been to Calvary. And that's where I got my salvation. And that is my story, right? I have trudged the road, right? I have trudged the road, and I've carried my cross. And the Lord He's put a light in me that, He's the one who keeps it lit, right? And he gives me the words I'm supposed to say, and I just be there just like a normal guy, right? I just have a normal conversation, because you know what? I still go through my own stuff. Until I meet him face to face, I will still be going through my own stuff. And here's the deal. I have mentors. I have coaches. Sure, we all do. Yeah. We all do, right? I still have individuals that I need to share my stuff with and go, hey man, this is where I'm at. Yep. What is your advice? Which way should I go? What do you think? Exactly. Yeah, if we want to move forward in life, we've got to have those coaches around us, and we've got to be willing to pay for it. You know what I mean? It's valuable. It's an investment. Mm-hmm. So I know that I'm paying, coaches, and I know that you have too. Yeah, really good. So let's transition here to what you're going to be teaching in the academy. Let's talk about that a little bit. You have something called the 5 Fs. Yeah, the 5 Fs. The 5 Fs is probably, I always rely and fall back on the 5 Fs. And the 5 Fs, we always hold up our hands, right? And we talk about faith, family, friendship, fitness, and finances. Mm-hmm. And the principle is that if you work on the first 4, usually the 5th one falls right into place. All right. Really good. So those are principles, and I know that I've helped you design that training, and then I've also been at a talk where you talked about that training, so I know it's going to be good. Is there anything else that you would like to tell our audience before we wrap this up and land this plane? Wow. You know what I would tell the audience? I said, have the courage to be honest with yourself. Mm-hmm. Right? Don't hide out thinking that nobody knows and nobody sees. But just, find the courage to change your life. If you really want the best that God has to offer, then you need to give him your best. And when you give him your best, it all falls into place.
That's really good. That's excellent way to end. Thank you so much,
Awesome.
Johnny.
That's
This has
beautiful.
been great.
Yeah.
All right, you guys. Thank you so much to our supporters, and all of you, the patrons on Patreon, everyone who subscribes to the YouTube channel. Please like, share, click the little bell so you can be notified when we go live. I appreciate your support wherever you're listening on whatever platform. Remember that if you want to join the conversation in the chat live, we are on Wednesdays at 5 p.m. Pacific on YouTube on Bralynn Newby channel over there, or on Facebook on Bralynn Newby International over there. So until next time, stay spirit-centered. Peace out.
Spirit-centered business, spiritual principles, and business principles combined. If you're ready to align your destiny and discover the destiny of your business, join us. We are entrepreneurs, leaders, and business professionals who take the power of the spirit realm in our business seriously. We go beyond just consuming information. We participate, activate, and engage the supernatural with unbelievable results. If you want to gather with like-minded business professionals to activate spiritual principles and mastermind creative solutions to business challenges, Spirit-Centered Business is your tribe. Go to spiritcenteredbusiness.com to become a member today. Thank you for listening to Spirit-Centered Business with Bralynn Newby. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share with your friends. The next stage of doing business by being spirit-centered is coming together in collaboration, working with spiritual principles and knowing our destiny. Join our tribe at spiritcenteredbusiness.com, and we'll catch you on the next broadcast. Peace out.